Welcome back to Catholic Lunch Break on AM 1430. This is Wyatt Goolsby, Executive Director of KSHJ. A couple of national radio hosts are coming to Houston for the very first KSHJ Summer Speaker Series. Debbie Georgianni and Adam Bly, the hosts of The Spirit World, will be in Houston on Saturday, July 13th to answer your questions about angels, demons, and how the spiritual and physical worlds interact. Joining us to talk more about that is Debbie Georgianni herself. She's the host of several shows that you hear on the Guadalupe Radio Network, including Take Two with Debbie and Jerry, as well as The Spirit World. And, of course, you can hear Debbie on Morning Joy at 6 a.m. Central. Debbie, thanks so much for taking the time to come on and talk with us today.
Oh, thanks so much, Wyatt. I love your program. I really appreciate the time here. It's fabulous. I just have to make one tiny correction to the introduction that you made. I appreciate it very much, but the only expert, the closest expert we have to the angels would be St. Thomas Aquinas. The rest of us are all enthusiasts, specialists. We love angels. We want to promote angels. So I'll take that expert title anytime, but not for this one.
Well, I know you've always had a fascination with angels, Debbie. What do you think it is about angels that's always drawn your attention and your interest?
Oh, I can tell you. Okay, that's a great question. My aunt or aunt, depending on how you call your aunt. My aunt is a Dominican sister, and she's still alive, going strong in New Jersey. She's in her late 90s, and she loved the angels so very, very much, was very close to the angels. And she taught all of my siblings and us and everybody in our family about the guardian angels at an early age, and especially with me when she went in to impart the teaching of the angels, because remember, the existence of the angels is the truth of our faith. You know, in the creed, we say things that are visible and invisible, seen and unseen. That's the angels. That's that whole network happening on the other side of the veil and also ministering to us. But I was actually, Wyatt, I was the youngest of 6 kids, and I worried about everything. I worried about, I don't know, just everything, like where I was going, like which bedroom was mine in the house if my brothers and sisters went off to school and college, because they were a lot older than I was. I was worried about everything. If my parents were going to stay together, if we were going to move from New Jersey, and if we had enough money, if we had this, that, and everything. Okay, so my aunt sat me down and she says, Debbie, you never have to worry about anything. Your guardian angel's beside you. She goes, Psalm 91. She pulled out Psalm 91. She got me totally hooked on the angels when I was probably about 8 years old, Wyatt. And I never looked back from that. But then I've always felt close to my guardian angel, so much so that I felt especially close to St. Michael, the archangel, as well. And I took the name Michel, the French version of Michael, as my confirmation name. Okay, so I'm finishing up the story real quickly. Fast forward to working as a religious education director. The pastor that I worked for was dedicated totally to the holy angels, and he said, Debbie, you need to teach on this, and you need to study angels. And that's when I began the deep dive study of 13 years into angels.
I appreciate your mentioning the guardian angel, because that's a good reminder, Debbie, that we all have that guardian angel, and we can all offer that prayer, that guardian angel prayer, because it's a powerful prayer as well. You had mentioned seen and unseen, and that's a great transition to this event that's going to be happening in Houston on Saturday, July 13th, and that is you and Adam are coming to answer questions about the Spirit World. And I should mention that the Spirit World airs on Saturday mornings at 10 a.m. Tell me about how this show got started, because it seems to be so fascinating to people. It's about all those things, the spiritual and physical world interact. Since you guys started it, there's been no shortage of people who have voiced an interest in this.
Well, I want to tell you something that's really interesting. You talk about full circle, where it started. You've got Tim Mott as the producer. Tim might remember this. He was the MC to the Houston Fullness of Truth conference that Adam and I were at. We were talking on angels and demons. It was the first conference we were together. We were friends prior to that, but we had never ministered alongside each other on angels and demons. It was in Houston that it all happened. It was in Houston pretty much that the spirit world idea was born in our minds and the creative side of it. And Tim, did you want to comment on that? Do you remember that?
Well, I don't know if Wyatt wants me to jump on his show.
No, go for it.
Yes,
go for it,
no,
Tim. Tim's here.
It was actually really fun. I would think it was my first MC gig. I had recently taken over as general manager here in Houston. And that Fullness of Truth called me up, said, could you do this? I'm like, well, I do a little bit of radio. So it was a fascinating topic because the whole thing, was Adam on that one too?
Yeah, it was Angels and Demons.
And then you had Father Wolfgang from the Opus Angelorum.
That's right.
It was a fascinating conference about spiritual warfare. And then when I heard that you were doing that show on the Spirit World, where you actually get to do that live on the radio with live callers every week, not just once in a lifetime, I was like, oh man, this is great. And I get to be part of it again. And now you're coming back to Houston. You're bringing the live radio show into our backyard just to get more in touch with the listeners.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad you did jump on, Tim, because actually, Wyatt, with you asking that question, it's so important for everybody in Houston to come to this event. I mean, you're the reason this all started. I mean, because the lines, I don't know if you remember it, Tim, but the lines at the tables, I mean, they were so long at my table, at Father Wolfgang's table, at Adam's table, and Wyatt, it just really, there was such a need for a solid catechesis on angels, the holy angels, the fallen angels, the demons, spiritual warfare, and Adam and I just felt called to do it. And so, yeah, I mean, this is exciting to be back in Houston, just a little over a month away for the Spirit World Live. I mean, there's so much more than just the angels and demons topics. There's everything in between, like what's going on with people's families, how to protect their families, the prayers to say, the sacramentals. I mean, all sorts of things that we have planned. And honestly, Wyatt, I hope the whole place is packed, because this is a necessary teaching and an understanding of what we cannot see and that is invisible to us. So it's very important that we get a grasp on it, so we're not taken off course. And Adam and I feel that the Spirit World has been going strong, Wyatt, because of that, because people are getting the information, they're loving it, and they want more of it.
I'm glad you and Tim had both mentioned that you'll be answering questions at this upcoming event in Houston, just like you answer questions on the Spirit World. Debbie, you and Adam were in Dallas several weeks back and answering questions in a similar kind of event. I want to ask you, when you go and talk to people about angels, demons, the Spirit World, I imagine you get some consistent questions over and over again. What are some of the most common questions or just topics that people really want you to hone in on a bit more?
Well, it's interesting you should say that. Actually, the topics are slightly changing a bit given the times that we're in, because I think people are nervous. We're in an election year. There's a lot of uncertainty, and people are just worried about what's going to happen in the future, if they're going to be able to provide for their families, the attack on the families, attack on marriages, all sorts of things. So the questions are changing a little bit, and you can tell it changes in area to area, region to region, what part of the world people are at and living in. But generally, the questions are things like, how are sacramentals used? How should I be using them to protect myself? Certain prayers should I be saying? So they ask those questions about the general understanding of guardian angels, how guardian angels work, manifestations. People want to know, if they do see something, what should they do? If they don't see something, all sorts of things. And so those are the kind of general questions. But more specifically, we're noticing that people are really they can kind of feel that there is a lot of activity, and it's some people are navigating it well because they have a solid understanding in catechesis and they're staying focused. Some people are finding it very, problematic because it's affecting their families, it's affecting their work and their general well-being. And so Adam and I are determined to give people a sense of peace and calm, and a lot of confidence to go forward with it, with just a sense of joy and hope, taking on their spiritual life. So Wyatt, we get everything you can imagine. I mean, we get some pretty. And last weekend on the Spirit World, we got some pretty detailed, very unique calls coming in of people's encounters with things that they weren't sure if they were demonic, if they were angelic. So it's It's a necessary work. I have to tell you, it keeps us on our toes. I mean, Adam and I have to stay current with everything, and it takes a lot to do, but it's worth it because we're seeing the results, and people are really happy about not feeling. The last thing we need is fear. Fear is not of God, and we know that. And fear keeps people paralyzed. It doesn't do well for them, and it doesn't serve them. And when you can lift that fear and give people a sense of hope and confidence, boy, oh boy, do you see them fly in their spiritual life. And that's why I love, Wyatt, that we're having it at the Lone Star Flight Museum.
I'm glad you'd mentioned that, Debbie, because went and checked out the Lone Star Flight Museum recently with my colleague, Kimberly Beck, and it is a really cool venue out there close to Hobby Airport. So it's plenty of room for people to come in and sit and be able to see the whole setup with the speaker. You and Adam are going to be, again, answering questions in addition to giving a talk as well. So it's going to be a fun time. I think all of us are going to really enjoy it. And again, people can buy their tickets right now. All they got to do is go on to grnonline.com and click on the events tab. It has something called the Summer Speaker Series, and people can buy tickets. Of course, we're going to also have food from Los Tios, which is particularly popular here in Houston. So people gotta love the food as well. Debbie, I want to go back to what you were talking about people being able to protect themselves from evil spirits, because that's a really good point. And you had mentioned St. Michael the Archangel, which is always a good prayer. People can always ask for him to protect us. Tell me about how it's important, though, just for people to participate in the life of the church via the sacraments, and just being able to go to Mass regularly and to pray regularly can help boost ourselves against the demonic.
Confession. Confession is golden. Go to confession, get in a state of grace, stay in a state of grace. I've been saying that now for a couple of years, since my brother texted me that one day when everything was seemed really dark in the world a couple of years ago when things were happening. And he said, people need to get in a state of grace, stay in a state of grace. And he was spot on. If you're in a state of grace or trying to be in a state of grace, there's a element of protection around you. People should not be worried, but they need to start working towards holiness. They need to start working towards a better spiritual life. And we can impart things that, especially what I have seen in ministry. I mean, I've been a religious education director for over 25 years, Wyatt. I've been in this ministry for a long time, and I've seen a ton of families, a ton of kids growing up into the adulthood. And I mean, it's amazing. Adam's in the religious demonology field. He participates in exorcisms on a weekly basis. He's a coach to the priests, and he's a church decreed expert in religious demonology. And he is just brilliant because he has an extensive mental health background. And I'll tell you, we put this all together, and we're able to impart tools, practices, tips, and a plan forward for people to move on with life and to help protect themselves, their families, their workplaces, all sorts of things. And it's important. Wyatt, the problem is there's not a lot of catechesis on this. If you go into religious education right now, you're not going to see that much on it. You maybe see the St. Michael prayer, the guardian angel prayer. You'll learn about the angels in general, and you'll learn about the fallen angels, but you're not going to understand some of these details of how to navigate life. And the other thing too is, unfortunately, a lot of the homilies today, our priests are not talking about demons because it let's face it, it frightens people. It can, and we present it in a whole different way. That's why this is the Spirit World Live. We're going to be on location, just like we're doing the show. It is a very powerful event. People who have left these events, I mean, Adam and I are together, I mean, not that often. And when we've noticed that people feel forever changed when they attend one of these events. Now, I will tell you, Wyatt, I know I'm kind of hogging the mic, but you're asking a lot of great questions, and I want to make sure our listeners know what they're in for. You're right. It's going to be at the Lone Star Flight Museum. It's going to be fabulous. We're going to tie that all into these vintage planes and everything. It's really cool. It's a great event. You're going to have great pictures. You're going to get your questions answered. But Wyatt, more importantly, this is important information for, I would say, preteens and up. I would not, if it were me, I would not bring super, little kids to this event because of the content of the material and the questions asked and the answers. We have to be so careful we get this out properly. And it really is for I would say preteens and up. If I definitely would bring them to this event.
Well, I appreciate your saying before, Debbie, be not afraid. That important message that we hear in the Bible and from John Paul II, just an important thing to reiterate is be not afraid as we're talking about these topics like the spirit world. So that's an important aspect as well. So, yes, you're right. I'm looking forward to being able to hear that conversation from people who are a little bit older than that teenage age. Want to also mention another show that you're a part of, which is Morning Joy, because Morning Joy airs at 6 a.m. Central here, and want to give a shout out to the host there, Keith Downey, because Keith is also going to be coming to Houston. He'll be there at the event on Saturday night, July 13th as well. That's a relatively new show, Morning Joy, and I would urge people to listen to that as well. Tell me about how fun it's been to do a new show in that regards and kind of do things from the ground up.
It's been an amazing experience. I will tell you, it was a bit difficult getting it off the ground because, I don't think the demons were happy that we had all this collaboration and support. We had a lot of support from priests. Many bishops stepped up and said, they would contribute segments on a regular basis. I mean, it was just incredible the amount of support we had, and the resistance we had was the same. It was coming at us. So what does that tell us, Wyatt? You know this because you're in ministry. Well, we got this resistance coming at us. We knew we were doing something well, and we were doing it for God. And having this collaboration of people that can bring forth solid catechesis, authentic Catholicism to the airwaves in the morning with Keith Downey as our wonderful host leading the way on the road to holiness. I love the idea of it. I love the concept of it. And also, it's all centered around the Holy Spirit, the fruits and the gifts of the Holy Spirit. So you put this all together. It is not just a show. It is definitely a production, in my humble opinion. And this production, every single weekday, is put forth from Guadalupe Radio Network to all of the listeners of Guadalupe Radio and beyond. We have affiliates picking up the show as well because they love it. And it's exciting. And each day we learn something new. Every day, and I'm on every day, and I think I can speak for the whole show team. We learn something new every day. A new word, a new concept, a new theory, a new understanding. I mean, it's unbelievable. And I pray that our listeners of Morning Joy feel the same way. But we do need to tune in every day and to also spread the word that we've got this really dynamic morning show.
Very good. We'll also credit, of course, again to Tim Mott, who was on a little bit earlier, for all of his work from the production end, because I know it's been tough, and I can imagine trying to get up that early in the morning and have regular guests like that can be tough. So, yes, we'll continue to pray for Morning Joy that continues to be successful as you guys continue to build it and build that audience, which is so important. Debbie, want to just mention one other thing is people are coming and talking to you. How much of it is a joy to you when you and Adam go to places and meet people, whether or not they be listeners or supporters of our network? How important is it for you to be able to engage with folks like you're going to be doing on July 13th?
Well, like you shared, Wyatt, in Dallas, we were just at the Spirit World Live in Dallas with over 400 folks for the whole weekend. It was amazing. The hugs, the kind words, the exchanges of information, the questions answered, the pictures we get to take with everyone, making new friends, watching people come in with a question or a comment that they have nowhere to go. They've gone to the parish. Nobody's really answered their question. And to see them walk out of the event and they just have their head held high, you can tell that they feel alive and they're taking on their spiritual life. It's amazing. I love it. I love being on location and meeting everyone. So does Adam. And I just pray that the place is packed and full as possibly as we can make it at this wonderful flight museum. But I will tell you something, Wyatt. It's very interesting when you're doing a event about spiritual warfare, anything about angels and demons. The demons will do everything possible to distract people from coming. They will do everything possible. They do it for me. It's unbelievable what they do. I will prove it to you, Wyatt. When I get there to Houston, I will tell you what I had to go through the week before I'm going to get there July 13th. It's unbelievable. As a matter of fact, going back to that first Houston conference that I met Tim, I almost didn't make it on stage. I literally didn't make it on stage. They were trying, the demons were trying everything possible to get me not to walk up on that stage.
Wow.
Isn't that unbelievable?
It is unbelievable. But again, good reminder for us to continue to pray for the show and pray for the success of the event itself, for everybody who's going to be traveling and coming to Houston as well for this particular event. Debbie Georgianni, host of The Spirit World, we will look forward to seeing you here in Houston on Saturday, July 13th. Thanks so much for taking the time to talk with us today.
Thanks, Wyatt. You do such a great job. Thank you for having me on.
Appreciate it. And again, one more reminder for folks that tickets are available for this KSHJ Summer Speaker Series. Again, it's going to be on Saturday, July 13th. It's going to be at the Lone Star Flight Museum. And again, it's going to be catered by Los Tios. We're going to have beer and wine as well as a presentation and a Q&A with Debbie and Adam. Again, you can go on to grnonline.com and click on the Events tab and look for Summer Speaker Series. Coming up, volunteers from across the Houston area will be here at the radio station tomorrow morning. We'll tell you why on the other end of this break. You're listening to Catholic Lunch Break on AM 1430.
Come soar through history and learn all about angels and demons. Join us for an enchanting evening at the Lone Star Flight Museum where history takes off. For the price of $45, you can have a night out to enjoy food, drinks, fellowship, and an incredible museum experience at one of Houston's best-kept secrets. Learn all about the world above us, both spiritual and physical, and meet the Spirit World Live hosts Debbie Georgianni and Adam Bly from 6 to 9 p.m. on Saturday, July 13th. From 6 to 7 p.m., enjoy light bites from Los Tios, beer, and wine as you mingle with fellow enthusiasts. For more information or to purchase tickets, go to www.grnonline.com and go to Houston Summer Speaker Series under the Events tab. Thank you and hope to see you there.